My name is Nancy Alonso, and I'm the current president of the Loyola University Latino Alumni Board. And at this point, I also want you to pencil in a date. September 9th is when we will be holding our next seminar, and more information will be sent out to you. So with that being said, I'm going to hand everything over to a fellow alumna, the treasurer of LULAB, as we call it, and tonight's moderator, Sofia Curiel.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone really had a very nice 4th of July weekend and was able to spend it with close friends and family members. Of course, really had the just beautiful weather wherever you were. As Nancy mentioned, this is our Somos Loyola, and the topic today would be on real estate, both on the commercial real estate and the residential real estate. We have two experts in the field, and they both love to share their knowledge and their skill sets, which they've had for a very long time. We'll start with Ed, who is pretty much focused on the commercial real estate side and has over 20 years of experience. He started in the Chicago Mercantile, then moved over to Northern Trust in the wealth management section, and then thereafter went into Trust, which was part of the Logan Square location. One of the major things that Ed mentioned was that through his discovery and working with different clients, he noticed there was this big secret that certain investors had access to. And a lot of that was pretty much based in commercial real estate. That's why in 2015, he decided to open his own company. He's currently the president and the broker of R4 Commercial Real Estate, short for R4 CRE. And CRE is commercial real estate for those of us that are not sure of the technical terms. And he pretty much has a lot of experience that he wants to share with us. The topics that he'll cover will be, how do you create commercial real estate? How do you analyze it as looking at it as an investment opportunity? And also, how do you make a difference between different types of commercial real estate? His nephew is actually on this call, and he is also a student of Loyola. And his brother actually worked at Loyola, the hospital, for 30 years. So he has a very close connection here to Loyola. So take really good notes, and all of the Q&A would be at the tail end once both speakers have been able to address their topics. Ed, over to you.
Thank you, Sophia. Good to see you, and thank you, Nancy, and thank you for having me here to join you guys and to hopefully share some knowledge that you can use. I'm going to share my screen again. My name. Did that work? Oh, let me try that again. There it is. Okay. I'm sure can everyone hear me? Yeah. Yes? Okay. So my name is Ed Ruiz, Heriberto Ruiz. Ed Ruiz is what everyone calls me. I've had my real estate license since 1990. I was a banker, a lender. I was a property owner, investor since the early 90s. And I also, I started my business, my commercial real estate business, about 7 years ago now. My connection to Loyola is my nephew, especially, who graduated from Loyola University a few years ago now. You know, as a private banker, I noticed one thing. So I did a lot of commercial real estate lending at Northern Trust, and I noticed one thing. That families with real estate were doing very well. You know, I worked at Northern Trust where we dealt with a lot of wealth. The families with real estate had net worth and they had income, which the other, I guess the markets couldn't really provide. They do provide some income but not a lot of net worth. And it was tangible, they could touch it, it was brick and mortar. And that I saw that they were passing this on to the next generation, which was very important for us to create wealth and for us to continue passing it on to our heirs. So, I mean, what I'm going to talk about today comes from a lot of more experience I have with on my business side as a broker, on my lending side when I was at the bank, and also personally as an investor of commercial real estate. So, I mean, what I want you to come away with is look at real estate, commercial real estate as an option. It doesn't hurt to, first buy, 2 to 4 units first to grow your income or your equity in order to buy something, because it takes a lot more money and a lot more, I guess, wherewithal in order for you to buy commercial real estate. So first of all, wealth creation, right? There's several ways to create wealth, and you can start your own business and grow it. You can the stock market is another way, and then real estate is the other another way. I mean, there's obviously other ways that you can create wealth, but these are kind of the main staples that you have in order to create wealth. I've done all of them, and real estate has been the one that has provided the most wealth creation over the past 30 years, I guess, close to 30 years. Real estate offers cash flow, tax breaks, it offers equity building, and then it's a hedge against inflation. And according to the College Investor, that's an online portal, 90% of the world's millionaires have been created by investing in real estate. Now, it doesn't say the stock market, doesn't say people opening up businesses. So 90%, that's a chunk of folks who created, being millionaires, starting in real estate. I think you also have a little bit more control in real estate. You have control than any other investment. Unless you're a day trader, then you have some control. You have some control over your business, but the economy kind of dictates that. In real estate, there is some economy movement, but a lot of it, I think you can control on your own. You can control, areas you buy in, how you improve your properties. And I have to say, if it wasn't for real estate, I would not have been able to say, goodbye corporate world, let me start my own business. And that's something that provided that, that no other investment could have provided for me. Now, I think one of the main questions, is what is commercial real estate? Commercial real estate is on the residential side. You're looking at anything that's over 5 residential units or more. That's a commercial real estate. Office buildings, many in downtown. Industrial, which includes warehouse, data centers, auto shops. That's what Amazon is buying a lot of. Retail, which are storefronts, strip malls. You'll see a lot of those, and a lot of them are empty after the pandemic. Hopefully this all comes back. A lot of strip malls are suffering right now. Mixed use, which is a combination of two. So it could have retail downstairs, office upstairs on the top, or in Chicago, you see a lot of storefronts with apartments above them. Those are mixed use. And then land for development or land for farming, that's also considered commercial real estate. And we call these asset classes. And commercial is a lot different, commercial real estate, than residential, because what you'll see later is, the costs to get in. And I mean, that's kind of one of the main things. It costs a little bit more to get into a commercial property, but, it usually, comes back, the investment pays well later on. So now, apartments versus other asset classes. I wanted to get into this because I think it's important for you to understand. Apartments versus the other asset classes, the retail, the industrial, the office. Apartments, you deal with individuals. You deal with your you're renting the individual. So you got to look at them personally. It's usually just a 1-year lease. And you look to see whether they can pay you that rent for that 1 year, right? You do all your due diligence for that. When you're dealing with the other asset classes, the retail, the industrial, if you own those classes, usually what you're going to put into those properties is going to be a business of some type. So then you have to analyze the business and analyze the individual who owns the business to make sure that they are viable, that they're going to pay you. I think what's important is that apartment buildings are when you rent an apartment, it's a 1-year lease. Sometimes you get lucky with a 2-year lease. But when you're renting commercial properties, it's usually a 3, 5, or 7-year lease with options to continue that forward. And that's why you have to do your due diligence even a little bit deeper when it comes to those businesses that you're renting to, because it's going to be a longer term. Both are lucrative, whether they're apartment buildings or they're the office, industrial, the other asset classes. But they, apartment buildings, I would have to say, take a little bit more work, a lot, because you're moving folks on an annual basis. So you have to do repairs, you have to do a lot more work on an annual basis versus if you rent, an office or you rent a retail store. For the most part, you set up the lease right, you don't have to do much, just collect your rents on a monthly basis. So I personally like apartments. That's what I've been doing. I'm used to that type of work, but I've seen folks do well when it comes to the other asset classes. So the question is, what's your goal with the commercial real estate? Your primary goal is cash flow. That's what you want. You want income coming your way. Appreciation is nice, obviously, and that's what you look for, but that's more in the longer term. And the more money or the more income that you're producing in that property, the value will continue to go up. But, the appreciation part, again, it's going to depend on the economy, and it's going to depend on, the areas you're in and who's buying it. Just like any, owners of retail properties, they didn't know the pandemic, or office properties even, they didn't know a pandemic was going to come and hit, right? So those depreciated a little bit because of that. It doesn't mean the cash flow went away, because once you have a lease, you're still going to be getting paid for, but the appreciation has kind of come off a little bit, only because of the, something that was uncontrollable. So when you analyze, what we want to do is, how do we analyze cash flow, right? One of the main, and again, I have to go back, because as a lender, I learned a lot about commercial real estate. One of the main things I learned is that when a bank does a loan for commercial real estate property, the building or property has to pay for itself, plus give you some cash. So when they underwrite a loan for a commercial property, and this was unknown to me previous to being a banker or a lender, you're buying the property that fully pays for itself, plus gives you some income. And that's the only way the bank will give you a loan. And when I heard this, I was surprised. Well, why isn't everyone buying commercial properties? Because a bank's not going to give you money unless it's already paying for itself and giving you additional income that you can either reinvest into the property, or you can, take as cash flow if that's what you need, depending on the, how the property is, in what condition the property is. So I think it's, that was kind of an eye opener for me. And at that point, I had been buying 2 flats and 3 flats, and they were working out. I'm not going to complain about that. They were working out. But, if you multiply, into a 6 flat or an 8 flat or something, you're looking at a lot more income coming your way. and appreciation in certain areas. So I wish I would have bought commercial properties early on. But again, I'll show you, it takes more money in order to do that. So starting with 2 flats, 3 flats, it's not a bad idea. But had I known how a bank looks at a commercial property when they're giving you a loan, I probably would have saved up enough to jump into a commercial property first. So I think one of the first questions I like to ask is what's a property, how much is a property worth, right? And this is, I use the income approach to find out what a property is worth. I figured if it's good enough for a bank to lend money on, because this is what I used as a lender, then it's good enough for me to value my properties and do my analysis on the property and see if it's something that I like. The red part here I put here, which is the cap rate. That's a very important to understand that, because that's going to give you the value on your property. The cap rate in a kind of an easy term, it's what you're going to earn on that investment. You're going to earn 7% on that investment. How you get to that number, you can either back into it by looking at like properties that you've seen sold. So if somebody sold a 6 flat, I'll go to 6 flat because I do apartment buildings, and that building sold for $500,000, and you look at what the income was for that property, net operating income, and you can come in and get the cap rate. Another way is there's other, you can get the cap rates by looking at some references, which I put in at the end. So CBRE is a big commercial real estate company. They put out cap rates. Marcus and Millichap, they put out cap rates so that you understand what's the average cap rate in the city of Chicago. Again, different areas in Chicago, cap rates change depending on where you're at. So it's important for you to fully understand a cap rate before you give it a value to the property. So in this instance, right, the income of a property, let's say it's a 6 flat, income of property is $50,000, expenses are $15,000. These expenses do not include principal and interest. It just includes your taxes, insurance. It includes your any management fees, and it includes any utilities. So if $15,000 are your expenses, your net operating income is $35,000. In order to get to the value, you get the net operating income divided by the cap rate, and you get a value of $500,000. So that's the value that you would give something that's making $35,000 in net operating income with a 7 cap. So, and just so you understand, the cap rates are different depending on the asset class, right? Buildings right now, multifamilies and industrial properties are kind of the hit right now. So those cap rates are going to be from 4 to 6% depending on the area. Near Wrigleyville, something fully leased is probably, they'll probably try to sell it at 4 or 5% cap. Industrial property, the same thing, fully leased, you're looking at a 4 to 5% cap. Properties with retail, if it's all retail, you'll probably be able to get a 9-10% cap on those in certain areas, depending on who are the tenants. Obviously, if you have an Apple store in your retail, then your cap rate, you're going to have to pay a lower cap rate. The lower the cap rate, the higher the value of the property. So now that we figured out value, right, we want to figure out we want to figure out here, what's the debt service ratio? The debt service ratio is what I like to look at because that tells you how much additional income you have after you've paid all your bills, including your mortgage. So I mentioned earlier, it's more expensive to purchase a commercial real estate. Your down payment is usually higher. It's usually 20%. Your rates are usually a little bit higher than the residential property. Your costs are higher. Closing costs are higher. Plus you have your appraisals are higher. You have to do environmentals and other types of due diligence. Your prices are usually higher for commercial. Your amortization is lower. So that means you have to do 25-year amortization, which means your payment goes higher, right? So, most residential's 30-year amortization. You can go as far as 30 years. And then your terms are less. So where you can do for residential 30-year mortgage amortized over 30 years, in commercial, it would be a 5-year or 7-year or 3-year deal or a balloon payment. So they're going to be ballooning at 3, 5, or 7 years, amortized over 25 years. And again, some amortization for some types of properties, only 20-year amortization. So it gets aggressive on the payment. And the banks feel less risk. It's less risky when they do it like that. So in this scenario, you have a property valued at $500,000. You have to put 20% down. So your mortgage amount is $400,000. And as we mentioned earlier, the income is $50,000, expenses are $15,000, and then so your net operating income is $35,000. The mortgage amount of $400,000, if we do a 4% interest with the 25-year amortization, your annual principal and interest is $25,248. I think it's a little more than that, but if you take $35,000 divided by $25,248, you get to this debt service ratio I have down here at the bottom, which is 1.39 times. So what that necessarily means, if you have a debt service ratio of 1.0, that means that your net operating income is paying your annual principal and interest. Your annual net operating income is paying your annual principal and interest. So 1.39 means that you have 0.39 more money coming out of this building that you can either take as income or you can put back into the building and improve it. So that's a total of $9,752 that you're making on this day one, the day you close. I'm not taking any of the closing costs into this scenario, but the property is making $9,752. And that's what a bank looks at. This is a deal that a bank would do all day for you. They would lend you the money immediately because it's paying all its bills plus giving you additional income. A bank only wants to see 1.2 times. 1.20 times is what they like to see. So anything above that is gravy for the bank. But again, as I mentioned earlier, debt service ratio that they're looking at is 1.2 times. So you're already making 20% above what the main payment is. So you make money from day one when you buy commercial property. So that's how cash flow works. So between looking at the value, which was the screen before, and looking at the debt service ratio of a property, those are kind of the two important scenarios for you to look at. So now, for more resources, again, it's National Association of Realtors is one place you can look on the commercial side. Illinois Association of Realtors, they have a commercial side. BizNow gives you a lot of information on commercial properties being sold, and so that way you can start getting an idea of what's the hot areas to buy, what investors are buying. And then CrowdStreet talks a lot about the commercial real estate side. And then you can also go to my website, www.r4cre.com, my Twitter handle @r4cre.com. You can follow me also on LinkedIn. I didn't put LinkedIn on here, LinkedIn under my name. I put a lot of information on commercial real estate happenings in the state of Illinois. There's also other avenues, cbre.com. They also put a lot of information out there, and Marcus and Millichap also do that too. And just to end, I tell everyone who will listen, buy real estate, because that 401k or Social Security is not going to be enough to retire on. I mean, it'll be enough to retire on, but maybe not at the lifestyle you're used to. And, real estate is the avenue to go. And I since, that's been kind of one of my, what I've been doing since I opened the business, is talking to people about buying real estate. And, if you can do commercial real estate, I'll help you understand it, and I'll help you, analyze it with you so that you know what you're getting into.
Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
So I know that some people might have some questions now, and if you do, we'll have those questions at the end. I wanted to add a little bit more information and why we're doing these topics. So I'm also in the financial industry, and my specialty has been in finance, investments, and operations, all within the banking asset management world. And as Ed had mentioned, there are a lot of different type of investment vehicles that sometimes only certain type of clients have access to because of the amount of money that they're investing. And we thought it was really important to share these topics with you because we don't know exactly where you are in your life cycle, right? Maybe you're recently graduating and are thinking about the future and aren't really sure how you should invest, but you want to invest and put your money in the right place, something that'll grow and will give you income or generation, maybe something you can pass down. Maybe you're looking at investment opportunity and aren't really sure what there is out there, but now this gave you an sort of an insight on what other vehicles there are to invest in. Maybe your kids are off to college and you say, you know what, it's time to downsize and look at something else. So we will also be looking at the residential part of the real estate shortly. But the main important thing is that we really want you to take away this information and use it and share it, because this is a topic that not a lot of people talk about. It's not a common dinner topic. People sometimes hush of their investments or what exactly that they do, just because it's sort of not common. And this gives us an opportunity to break through that. So I really hope that you have enjoyed the first portion of our topic today. I'm going to pass it on to Nancy, who will share a little bit more of Loyola and what we're really developing and part of our mission. Nancy, off to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. I want to share, I know that many of you may be familiar with our organization, but I just want to share a little bit about who we are and where we are in our history. So this year marks our 20th anniversary, and we've been in existence since 2001. And over the years, we have stayed true to our many components of our mission in the Jesuit tradition. And so just to name a few, we focus on developing professional networks among our Latino alumni. We encourage, promote, and maintain perpetual friendships that were created while we were attending the university. And then we also support undergraduate and graduate students through scholarships. And we currently sponsor 2 scholarships, and your generous donations tonight generated $125. And I know it may seem like a very low amount, but we're eternally grateful because it just helps our scholarships grow. And if you would like to learn more about how to help us with our mission, please be on the lookout for additional information in an email after this event. And so, Sofia, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Nancy. So yes, we're really big on supporting a lot of our current students and with scholarships, because there's different needs that we have. And it's just a great opportunity, especially when you hear how it's impacted them in a positive way. So the second part, if you're all ready, is going to be on residential real estate. Now, this is a little bit more easier to understand because everybody lives in a home or an apartment. They probably own or rent. So it's kind of, the concept is a little bit easier, but there's still a lot of information that you can have, right? So Lindsay is actually at Griffin, and she's been there for 4 years. Before she was there, she's currently a senior agent. And before she moved into real estate, she actually did a major career change. She was a teacher of music for 12 years. So one of the major things that she is the advocate for what she does for all of her clients is really that they get to understand and listen to what it is that the clients need, just to make sure that their vision aligns with the purchase. So the topics that she will be talking about is focus on residential real estate. How do you analyze the markets? What type of, what would be to produce a solid offer, and the different stages of home buying. So her main focus is for the clients to fully understand those topics, and her main specialty is in the suburban areas of Chicago. Lindsay, off to you.
Thank you, Sophia. All right, I'm just going to quickly share my screen really quick so we can get talking. And like Sophia said, this might be a little bit of an easier concept to take in because it's a little bit more of an everyday thing for people. Okay. So here we go, home buying in a seller's market. That's the big thing right now that I want to focus on, because as we all know, everyone talks about the real estate market is very hot right now. First things first, is it the right time? This is like the loaded question, not going to lie, because so many people say, oh, am I going to buy now and then get my money back in say 5 years when I want to turn around and sell the house? My go-to statement, I don't have a crystal ball. No one could have ever predicted that we would have this pandemic either, and that would take a role on the housing market. So what it turns out to be, personally, I like to tell my clients, it becomes a selfish decision. What is right for you? Okay. So is renting right for you, or is owning right for you right now? Also the length of ownership. How long do you want to be in this next home purchase of yours? Lifestyle priorities, that is the huge one right now that has played a lot of role in real estate, because so many people got stuck with the work from home lifestyle, remote learning with kids. So much of this lifestyle has changed for people. A lot of people are actually leaving the city to come out to have more land as well. And personal finances, it becomes a situation whether you realize, oh my gosh, I've been paying so much money in renting. Why don't I just put this into something that, like I was talking about, investing, so you do see the turnaround for this. So the one thing that's very important when you're making this decision is the housing market payment should not exceed 35% of your income. So you kind of have to do a little grunt work ahead of time just to know what you're comfortable with. And 25% would be ideal. And then let's see here. There we go. You have your income and monthly spending info handy, especially because there's lots of different resources out here. Obviously, I work for Redfin, so I'm going to put my little plug in there about Redfin. But on our website, we do have a free online calculator that can help you go through your finances, your income, your monthly spending. And when I say monthly spending, take it down to what you do for fun. Put in your groceries, how much you spend on gas. And you don't want to be house poor. So make sure that you try to over evaluate your monthly spending when you're coming into how much you want to spend for your housing. Oops. There we go. Sorry, went a little too far there. So pre-approval is required to really kind of put in an offer. Some agencies will say, I need your pre-approval before I show you any houses. Not the case with Redfin. We're a little bit different in that situation, but I wanted to break it down to show you the different levels of your pre-approval, because this is playing a large role in winning multiple offers. Okay. That first step is that pre-qualification. This is just a very low level that it's kind of like you've started the conversation with the lender. It doesn't necessarily solidify anything. Okay. And the next level is that traditional pre-approval, where they have started to look at your credits, your income, your assets, and a loan officer has been assigned to you and you are in communication. This is very traditional right here. Okay. Now, the best thing that you can do is to send your pre-approval to an underwriter. Now, the underwriting process is something that is just normal when it comes to any type of loan. Okay. So to have an underwriter approve it really solids your loan. So getting pre-approved, sorry. All right, so getting pre-approved and what you'll need, okay? So the different stages to it, you have got your credit rating and history. Other thing that's important is total debt. Some people think, oh, I have so much debt. I have student loans, credit card debts, you know, my car loan, I can't buy a house because I have debt. No, debt is not necessarily a bad thing. You just want to make sure that your income to debt ratio is not too close. Okay, that's where it does come into play. Investments, right back up Ed's alley again. It's important to have some of these that you can provide because it is another form of money. It shows worth, and that's what's important for your pre-approval. Down payment. This is one of the things that people sometimes think, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to just finance it all. You still need a little bit of money to secure your loan. Sometimes I've seen as low as 3% of the purchase price. Sometimes a lot of conventional loans aim at 20% down payment. If you can go even higher, that's awesome in a seller's market, because then you are looking at less to be financed, which looks like you have a stronger loan. And also work history, they're going to ask for tax returns, pay stubs, residential information. Now, it feels like this is a whole ton of information. Some people like to think, oh my gosh, do they need a blood sample at this point? Because it's a lot of information. Feels like no filters there. You're like, here's everything about me. And it's true. It's a lot of information. And the same thing goes for people who actually refi. There was a lot of people right now that the housing rates, so the loans went down, and people who didn't want to sell still took advantage to change their loan terms and refi. And when you refi, a lot of times you have to apply all of this too. So it is standard. It can be tedious, but in the end, it's very thorough, and it makes sure that nothing gets missed so that you don't end up house poor. So understanding your market can help you make a winning offer. So that's very, very important right now. So your local market trends. So you want to pay close attention to the median sale price, the number of homes that are for sale, as well as how many days the homes are sticking on the market. I'm sure you know, you've seen these houses pop up, and within like 2-3 days, they're all of a sudden contingent. It's legit, it's happening, okay? But if you see a home sitting on the market for say 30 days in a seller's market, you're gonna wanna wonder what happened. Why is that one still there? So pay attention to trends, pay attention to these details here, okay? One of the things that's great about Redfin, obviously, like I said, I'm gonna put those plugs in there because I work for a fabulous company, but we are very market driven. So our information is updated every 5 minutes. We are linked to the MLS. We are very data driven. I can say it over and over. We actually started off the company as a search engine. So a market and all of that is all up our alley. But speaking of local market trends right now, we actually just applied a new update with everything for the Chicago market in general. So speaking of that median sale price, the median sale price for a home in the Chicago market actually increased 0.6%, okay? And the average sale price in Chicago is about $316,000, okay? Keep in mind this, I'm not breaking this down to zip codes, which I will talk about in a little bit. I'm not breaking it down to single family homes or townhomes or condos. This is just a complete median for Chicago housing market, okay? So the number of homes sold increased 3%, okay? So it's happening because we know there's an abundance of buyers out there right now. Now, the number of newly listed homes decreased 8.4%. So new listings are not popping up. So inventory has been low, and that's been our battle, and that's why it's been a challenging seller's market. And the total number of homes for sale decreased 0.2%. Okay, now this is all taking over June because we just started a new month, so we got all of our new statistics. So just a little feedback for you. My take on it, though, was that May was really like the peak of the housing market. Now as the market is coming down, it's sizzling, coming off of its sizzle. Number of buyers are still out there. They're still house hunting, but it dropped a little bit because some got discouraged from the multiple offers. Some reevaluated, thought, do I need to pay this much for a house right now? And that's why I really focused in on the financing aspect of this early on with that pre-approval, because it breaks down your numbers, and that's really important to some people. And it should be when you're buying a home because it is an investment. So there's lots of competition still, but many buyers are actually starting to take breaks. Things have slowed down a little bit. And its usual slowdown usually around Memorial Day and Father's Day. And like I said, the newly listed homes have decreased. So we'll see what happens in this, coming closer to the school year starting, because that usually plays a role in it. It does start to slow down a little bit, but May definitely was the peak this year. So, and I'm sure you all knew that. So now breaking it down to suburban wise. Okay. So I chose area 60067, which is Palatine pretty much. Born and raised there. So obviously this is what I know in a lot of that area. The median list price is $360,000. And the price per square foot, I always tell all of my buyers to pay attention to this, $189 per square foot. That's high. That's high if you think about it. If you break it down to how many square feet you have in your current place, and you think, oh my gosh, how much am I going to pay just to own a place then too? Sometimes that comes through. So median sale to list price. This is also very important that I tell my buyers. This is important. It regards how much of the list price are homes selling for. And this is at 99.6%. So pretty much what you see a house listed at in the Palatine area, it's selling at. It's very close. Not as many multiple offers though. Average number of offers is 2. And average down payments, this is what we talked about before. That's one of those things that can solidify your loan a little bit more. The average down payment is 25%. Okay. Number of homes sold in that area is 106. Keep in mind, this is Redfin statistics. It's not all Redfin buyers. This is the Chicago market as a whole. Okay. So, I'm sorry, that was Palatine because I was breaking down the burbs. Now, when we take it down to a section of Chicago over here, look at that change in the price per square foot. It's less. But however, 101.2% of the list price. And you're looking at an average of 7 offers per listing, which I can say from the listing standpoint, most of my listings have seen it anywhere from 3 to probably about 12 offers. It's a lot to wean through. So you just got to be prepared and come in strong. So average down payment in the city though, actually is 52.5%. You got to look at that as if $285,000 is the average sale price, and half of that is being financed. The rest of that is half of that is cash that people are saying, here you go, here's like $100,000 that I'm going to put towards my loan so that I don't have to finance as much, which is really great because then you're financing less and then your monthly mortgage is going to be less. So that's a great feature. So here we are talking about how to get out there looking at houses, how to meet your real estate agent, how to get the ball rolling ultimately. Okay. So you have options. You can meet an agent. You can suggest to say, hey, can you take me to see a few houses? And when you do that, the number one thing I want to make sure you do is to find your tour checklist. Make it in your mind. Even Redfin has online sources that you can find on our website, but make a checklist of what's important for you in your next home purchase. Okay. So on that tour checklist, it could be something like, I really want a window over my kitchen sink. It sounds silly, but some people are very, very particular with that. Or some say, I want I don't want any overhead lighting in the bedroom because I want to be able to utilize lamps for soft lights, so it's just little things like that though, but it's worthwhile making a list so that and when you're walking through, you keep that list in the back of your head so that you're thinking, because it's so easy when you walk through a home, especially one that's been staged so beautifully, to look at the decor, and you have to remove yourself and realize this isn't the house. I'm not getting everything in here. I need to think about the details of the house that I like. Okay. So make sure that you and your realtor are on the same page and know what is on your list. You can also go to open houses. When you go to open houses, you do not have to have your realtor come with you. You can do that on your own time. That's why us realtors host those for you to be able to come in. And home tours, not only can you do it in person, we at Redfin are also offering virtual ones. So just like this on Zoom, we can do Zoom, we can do FaceTime, different things. Some people are terrified of that idea of, I'm going to buy a house, I'm not going to be in it. I've got buyers that are coming from Arizona. They don't have an option. They can't fly out here every time. So it does help to do that. And it's silly, but it's one of those things. I'll walk through a house and I will stomp on the floor so you can hear those wood creaks. I'll zoom in on the countertop so you can see the quality of them, you know, so little things like that. And it's still worthwhile. If you can't even get out of the city and you want to buy in the burbs, and getting out into the suburbs on the weeknights isn't always ideal, especially sitting on traffic. That's something you can do, and then schedule the tour later on the weekend to go in person. So different things to take into consideration of how to get out there and see some houses. And it's important you get out there and you see them and you schedule your house tours fast, because like we talked about, homes are gone and on contingent in a couple days. So when you meet with your agent, a couple things. Ask them how many clients they've helped in a year. How quickly can they get you into a home? And how many sales have you handled in your search area? And lastly, reviews. People are honest, and home buying is a very sensitive subject. It's also, like I said, first thing, you need to be selfish. If a true agent is going to put your needs first, because it is your purchase, okay? So if you want to read reviews, I suggest it, because you're going to see how satisfied people are, because it's a very sensitive subject. So with Redfin, this is easy. Search me and my reviews will pop up. I have a whole profile page. You can also find me on Facebook as well as a buyer's agent on Redfin. And I also do listings too. So there is that, but make sure you ask these questions, because it's important that your agent's on your side. That's one of the big things, is to make sure that you have someone in your corner helping you out. Because I say this to a lot of my clients, you know, I buy houses every day, not with my money, with my clients, but I buy them every day. I know the process. I know what to go through, what to look for. People don't buy houses every day. You know, it's a big investment. It's maybe every 5 years is a lot of the times that's the turnaround. So you want somebody who does it all the time, who knows it and has good reviews and is making sure they have your best interest in mind. And you got to have a good connection. They have to be personable. So some of the things right now, common contingencies. So just kind of talk you through a little bit about the home buying process in general. So there's going to be a financing contingency if you are going to be financing your loan. Obviously, if it's a cash purchase, you can just ignore this, but the buyer must get approved for a mortgage loan to be able to buy the home. All right. There is the inspection contingency. This happens as soon as we are under contract to purchase the home. You are going to have 5 to 7 business days to get that home inspector in the home and get in touch with your attorney. Okay. And this is kind of like, I like to talk about the inspection contingency as like round 2 of negotiations, because you walk into a home and everything's perfect. And then the inspection, you've got somebody that you hired to come in and pretty much go through with a fine tooth comb. And it's hard because you're paying them to tell you things that are wrong. Take away from that, it's not things that are wrong, because nothing's perfect and nobody's perfect. Take it as a moment to be educated on your future home. Even new construction is not perfect, okay? And like I said, this is the second round of negotiations. Use this as your time to say, hey, look, I really am not happy that the railing on the basement stairs is loose. Could you tighten it for me? Little things like that. You'd be surprised. Sometimes they come up, and sometimes sellers are willing to do it for you. So it doesn't hurt if you don't ask. So then also the sale contingencies. Sometimes people are contingent on the sale of their current home. This does not win deals right now on multiple offers. So if there's ways to get around some of these contingencies, I am your person to talk to for sure. Appraisal contingency. This is huge. A lot of times, this is what solidifies your loan, okay? So this is confirming the value of the home that you got under contract. And title contingency, this is just kind of making sure that there are no liens against the property. This is, a lot of this comes into hands with the role of the real estate attorney that you hire. So some of this can be a little bit confusing. A few of them are addressed up front when you're making an offer, and a lot of them are addressed when you're under contract too. So then, like I said early on, it is a seller's market. So some things that I'm seeing are winning some offers these days are to taking the home as is condition. Still do a home inspection. Would never, ever advise you not to do a home inspection. but it just means that the seller is not obligated to make any repair requests. But if there's a safety or structural issue, absolutely that needs to be addressed. Appraisal deficit. A lot of times homes are going over list price and the appraisal is coming in under. It's everyone's fear. It happens. Buyers can offer to pay the difference. So for example, let's say you made an offer on a house that was listed at $300,000. You offered 300 and let's go 325. Okay. The appraisal came back at 315. We're looking at a $10,000 difference there. Okay. You can choose to say, all right, I'll pay the difference, just no end number. And that's a little terrifying. Some people say I'll pay 5,000 towards the difference, or even I'll pay the difference between the list and the contract. So if the appraisal comes back within that range, I'll pay the difference. So there's options there. So it's, some people just get very scared of like, oh my gosh, this means I'm going to totally overpay for a house. You're not, because kind of have to remove yourself a little bit and say, I'm paying a little bit more to solidify my loan. Because whether you feel like you're paying more for a house, it's not the seller's problem. It's not the buyer's problem. It's the market. The market sets the housing rates. And right now the house values are up because it is a seller's market. So sometimes if it's paying a little bit more towards that appraisal deficit, you do that so that you can solidify your loan. And it's all about how much cash you have. So like I said at the beginning, make sure you know your numbers for sure. Love letter. Some people do this. Some people are very anti these. I like to say it can help because then you are more than just a name on a contract. Some agents do not support these at all. And I do not share them with my sellers up front. I ask them if they would like to see them. So some people just don't want to because they don't want to be swayed. They want to just look at just the basic terms, and that's what we're working with. So, but it does help sometimes. I can say that I have won offers with some of these love letters. So sellers closing costs. Keep in mind, a lot of times people think, oh my gosh, I'm paying so much for a realtor. As a buyer, you are not paying for the commission of the realtors. The sellers are paying that. So sometimes you can offer to pay some of the seller's closing costs, just a little bit, even if it's just say $2,000. It gets towards that, and it could be going towards the commission for the realtors. So just a little incentive out there, because really with it being a seller's market, it's about what can you do to win over that seller. And if you're going to say, hey, here's $2,000 just to help with all the realtor fees and all these kind of other things, that seller's gonna be like, wow, I really like this person. Thank you so much for realizing that I'm paying so much money to sell my house. Thank you for the help. So sometimes it's a team aspect. Closing dates. Leaving this blank it sounds crazy, but if you do not have to be in your next home by a certain time frame, it is really helpful because a lot of these sellers are selling and some of them are relocating for work. They're going to different states, or the problem being too is they're sitting in the same boat as a lot of these buyers. They need somewhere to go. So if you leave this blank and allow the seller to choose, hey, you know what, I need 60 days versus 30 days, they might need somewhere to go. So a lot of this is just let it be a conversation and see what all can happen, because you never know. It, like I said from the beginning, it's sensitive. It's very sensitive to buy a home. So that can help, because like I said, if you try to be a team, it helps. It does. So the little bit of the closing aspect here. So we're looking at typically takes 30 days. Some lenders nowadays are looking at 45, but we can do it in 30 days sometimes. So you're looking at this as just kind of a timeline here. You've got your mutual acceptance. The seller has accepted your offer. Yay, but don't party yet, okay? The closing process is going to begin. You need to deposit your earnest money, okay? Some people wonder, what is that earnest money? This goes right back to the idea of you can't completely finance when you buy a house. You need to have a couple $1,000s readily available right away. That earnest money is kind of like an insurance incentive. It's usually 1 to 3% of the purchase price, and it is due within 2 days. And it goes to sometimes the attorneys, sometimes to the real estate companies, and it just kind of sits there. And it gets applied later on down the road. But that's something that it's just kind of like, here's a little bit of money to the sellers, but it doesn't go in their hands. Remember, it goes into the hands of the either this real estate agents or the attorneys. Okay. So execute the contingencies. Remember, we talked about early on with the appraisal, the title contingency, the inspection contingencies. So these are all written into your offer. This is when all of these are going to start happening. Okay. The appraisal is going to take place. Then you have your final loan approval. Okay. Finally, your closing costs are 2 to 5% of the purchase price. This is going to include your lender fees, title insurance, appraisal, inspection. These are the fees for the buyer side. Okay. So like I said, you have to have a couple $1,000s up front to pay for that deposit, the earnest money. You also are going to be responsible for paying for the home inspection. Okay. Then at the end, when it comes to the final end, when you get the closing, you have your closing costs. You also have your down payment that you're going to be instructed on how to provide that. Okay. Closing day. Yay. You get your keys, attend the closing, and then you celebrate. Okay. So that's kind of the timeline for purchasing a house. And that is all that I have for you. I am going to leave you with one little tidbit. Okay. And this kind of goes back to a little bit with Ed. I know he talked about the commercial real estate side of things, but real estate in general, it is an investment. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of quote from Franklin Roosevelt. Real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care, it is about the safest investment in the world. I'm going to leave you guys with that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Lindsay, for sharing your information and really expanding on the other side of real estate, which is the residential real estate. So now you have gained 2 different perspectives. One was on commercial real estate and the other one was on residential real estate. And it's up to you what you do next. But before we go to the next steps, let's have some Q&A. This one is really for either or, Ed or Lindsay. When you're looking at the top things, basically that you should be looking for from a real estate, from a realtor, what are the things that you should be doing or you should know before you start investing, either in residential or in commercial? Do you want me to repeat?
Lindsay. Yeah.
Okay, you got it.
So your question is can you repeat that again?
Sure. What are the top things that you should ask your realtor before you start going into business with them, either for residential or commercial?
Okay. Well, I think it's different for both. Residential is, when you're looking for on the commercial side, I think what you want to make sure is that they understand how to analyze a property. So if you're looking for an investment property, a multifamily, let's say, how do you analyze that property? Is that a good purchase for them? What are the benefits of it? What's the value add opportunity with that property? It's something that a realtor who does commercial should be able to answer. And it's, I have clients, investors who like to invest in strip malls, right? So that's you need to understand that asset class. So depending on what you decide you're going to invest in, you need to make sure that they understand that asset class in commercial. Residential would be a little bit different when you look at realtors or residential. I mean, Lindsay, if you'd like to jump in.
Yes, so I actually touched on that question a little bit, and I said important questions to find your right agent. I think one of the things in it, like I said, it's about who's in your corner for that. And it's about how many clients have you helped? How quickly can you get into a house? How many sales have you handled in my search area? And can I see reviews? Okay. I think that's very important. And a lot of times it's important to just kind of ask that realtor their knowledge of the area. what do they know? Any tidbits that they can share with you? Because everyone, especially, you don't know where they're coming from. But if you find a realtor that can give you a little bit extra insight, you kind of have a little bit more trust there to know that you're in good hands, that they know, and they're just not just talking. So
this next question is for Lindsay. What expenses do buyers have that cannot be financed?
perfect. Okay. So right off the bat, you are going to be looking at your earnest money. Okay. So that is usually, depending on the purchase price, 1 to 3%. Okay. That's going to be due within 2 to 3 days after an accepted offer. From there, you also have to pay for the home inspection. Okay. That usually costs about $500 to $750. And then you kind of sit tight for a little bit, because then you wait through the loan approval process. After that, your lender would tell you, that's where I talked about, you need to make sure you have your finances in order. And your lender would be able to tell you how much money you need for a down payment on your loan. So that's something that, it all depends on everyone's individual expenses and their finances. So that's something you have to stay in touch with your lender. If you have a great lender, you can tell them, just have a conversation. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm just going to do it on the computer. I'm just going to input everything and someone will give me my numbers. Have a conversation so that you know exactly what your numbers are. Because then also at the end of the deal, you have your closing costs, like I talked about. And that could be a couple $1,000s as well. However, when I talk about that earnest money at the beginning, that gets applied to your closing costs at the end. So that helps you a little bit. So if you put a little bit money in that earnest money at the beginning, a little bit more, that helps your closing costs at the end. So out of pocket, that's not financed, I would say to play it safe, depending on the price point that you're looking at, please make sure to have a couple $1,000s for sure.
Thank you, Lindsay. This next question is for Ed. What are some of the additional requirements, restrictions, or limitations that are different from residential real estate when investing in commercial real estate?
I think one of the biggest issues or due diligence pieces when it's commercial real estate is banks require an environmental, and what they require a simple environmental, which would be just looking at the history of a property to see whether it had any underground tanks, whether it used to be a dry cleaner. Those things cause environmental, issues. If they find something in the history that wasn't cleared, then they're going to require a phase one. A phase one costs $3,000 minimum to just start looking into a property even deeper. So they start looking at tracks from the fire department. They start looking at even the history even more. If they find that there used to be an underground tank and there's nowhere in the history that the tank was removed, then you're going to have to pay for a phase two environmental. A phase two environmental requires them to actually dig into the property and kind of take out little tubes of dirt in certain different areas in the property, or even mainly probably where they see where the history shows that the tank used to be, to make sure there's no underground spillage of any kind. So I think that is kind of the main topic or subject that you need to understand when you buy a property. Doing your own due diligence up front and making sure that that property wasn't, a laundromat, dry cleaner back in the day, or was it used for even auto repair, would help. If you know it does, then you're going to have these added expenses.
Thank you, Ed. This next question is for Lindsay. We are first homeowners and have considered selling our home. However, we fear that not selling it in time to purchase a new home. So that's their fear, right? They're not going to sell it in time before they buy the new home. The question is, can can you say a little bit more about some of those contingencies?
I think I'm a little lost here. So they're selling their
So,
home?
so they're first-time homeowners, and
Okay.
they're thinking about selling their home.
Yes.
But the fear is that not selling it in time to purchase a new home. So kind of like that gap between selling and buying a new home. And they
Mhm.
want to know a little bit more of those contingencies.
Okay. There is a way to write in a contingency for the home, the sellers to be able to find a replacement home. There is a contingency for that, for sure. And it is one of those things you just work out in negotiation, especially with this seller's market, the way that it is and homes selling so fast. There are listings out there that people are even saying from the start, even in the listing description, no offer will be accepted. So it's one of those things like that. You have control, you do. So with the contingencies with that, it's mainly it's just stay in communication with your agent and make sure that your agent is staying in touch with the buyer's agent so that there's constant communication. Sometimes in this market, it's coming down to, okay, if you sell your house first, do you have somewhere to go in that time frame? Can you take a little vacation? And then you have to deal with all of your personal belongings going in storage. But it's also, you kind of have to be supportive with, with the different options and be open-minded. Some people are doing rent back options. And what you can do is you can close, let's say you sold your house, it's under contract, and you're going to close on July 8th. Okay. But you're not moving out on July 8th because you can't buy your next house till, let's say, July 30th. So the attorneys will help you out to write it up that you can do a rent back option. So you can stay in that home and you can pay the new buyer's rent, and they work out the rates and all of that kind of stuff. You pay the buyer's rent until you can move out and move into your next home. It's something that is happening in this market. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. This next one is for Ed. The question is, how much residential property may be enough to demonstrate one's potential to purchase commercial property, such as a multi-floor apartment building?
I think, as I mentioned, commercial properties are basically standalone properties. So as long as you have the income, or not the income, if you have the down payment, the 20% down payment for multifamily, then you can buy one. What helps, if you already have residential property, it helps to show the bank that you know how to manage and maintain a property. So that's a positive. Now, if your question is really, how much money or how much equity I need in order to buy a multifamily, it all depends on the price of the multifamily, because you're going to need 20% for the most part. Now, if you there is a program out there, a Fannie Mae program, where you only need 10% down in order to buy a multifamily. It has to be 5 units or more. But again, you need at least 10 to 20% in order to buy a commercial property, a multifamily. Again, they're going to look at that building on its own. So if you have to sell or pull the equity out of those residential properties in order to do that, then you can do that. Again, as you saw in my example, $500,000 property, you would need $100,000 to put down on that, 20%. So, it's whenever you have the down payment is when you can invest. If you were thinking of selling your residential property to pull the equity, then, then that's a whole different thing. Then you can use that. What you have to understand is, once you add equity to the property, once you, let's say, you take out a loan on the property in order to take equity out, now they're going to look at you individually and how much debt you have in order to pay even that additional equity you just pulled out of your property with a line of credit or whatever. So again, commercial properties are standalone. As long as you have that down payment, a bank will look at that property on its own to make sure it's cash flowing.
Thank you, Ed. This question is for the both of you. So whoever would like to go first can. How do you retain wealth that you have built? And once it's been established, to ensure that you have a steady flow income? I can repeat the question. So how do you build your wealth that you have established in order to have that steady flow income?
I'm going to let you take this one, Ed. I think this is a lot more with the investment aspect of it.
Did you guys read my lips? I'm just kidding. So in order to maintain wealth, right? In order for you to maintain your wealth, once you reach a certain level of wealth or net worth, you have to take less risk, right? And that's putting it into, property to me is less risky. And if you're going to go into the stock market, you're looking at fixed income products that are less risky. How do you improve the income coming out of that property is by increasing rents and, by increasing the income coming out of it, reducing expenses. So you look at a property and you start looking to see how can you reduce your expenses. One thing you can do if a property, you're heating the whole property, let's say it has one furnace in that whole property, then you put individual furnaces in each unit. It's costly at first, but at the end, the unit tenant is going to be paying for that. Another thing I've done is I put in these, instead of a hot water tank, I put in tankless hot water heaters in the units. Then the tenants have to pay for their own hot water instead of you heating up a 90, 100 gallon hot water tank. So if you can reduce expenses and increase rents slowly, then you're able to continue that cash flow, increase that cash flow, and maintain the net worth or the value of that property. So, kitchens and bathrooms maintain the value of properties. I don't know that, hopefully that answers your question.
Well, I was going to say from the residential standpoint of it, because you don't have income coming in when you have just a property like that. I mean, you may have it as a rental property, but the one thing to keep in mind is if you're going to ever do any updates on your house, know where you are. Don't overdo it. So, you don't want to go ahead and put, so much money into your kitchen and do everything high end when the rest of the neighborhood doesn't have that, because you're not going to get your benefits. You're not going to get your money back in the end. So just make sure it's not about keeping up with the Joneses when you're in suburbia or when you have a house. It's keeping up with the trends that are in the housing market and in your neighborhood as well. So don't try to just outdo it and always do everything over the top. You want to make sure that you have wise investments when you're updating anything in the house. And obviously updating is important. Like Ed was saying, try to, change the water heaters and stuff like that. It's updating is it definitely, you see the benefit of it in the end so that you're not hit with it and then people are paying less for your house.
Thank you both. Lindsay, this one is for you. Do I need to use an agent when I'm buying a home?
Yes.
And what happens if I choose not to? Like, what can be some of the things that, why is there such a benefit to having an agent versus not?
So the biggest thing is some people, like I said, touched on a little bit there about how, I don't want to pay for an agent. I don't want to pay the commission fees. As a buy side, you kind of need your agent because I don't know how you're going to get into the houses. You can go around and you can find those signs and you can call the number that's on there, but keep in mind that number that's on there, that person is supporting the seller. They're not supporting you as the buyer. You always want someone in your corner. So I think the easiest way, if you're ever going to avoid using a realtor, is if you're going to sell your house and do for sale by owner, but you don't always reap the benefits of having all the marketing, and it's the safety aspect as well, is because then you are in charge of who's coming in your house. You're in charge of scheduling all of that. There's so many benefits to working with a realtor to try to keep it just a little bit easy. Like I said, realtors, we do this every day. people don't buy houses every day. So it's one of those things of let us help you. And you kind of can't get into a house a lot of times if you don't have an agent. It's challenging. You just, main thing, you want someone in your corner helping you.
Thank you. This is for the both of you. What's the best way to understand whether we are in a seller's or buyer's market?
I'm unmuted. You want to take it, Ed?
Go ahead. You're in the seller's market.
Okay. So the biggest thing for right now, it's inventory plays a role in seller's markets. So if you have low inventory, that means there's less houses available and there's an abundance of buyers. Right now, what's also playing a role with the abundance of buyers is the very low rates for the loan. So that's huge. Home values are going to be up. If you hear people say, oh my gosh, I paid so much more for my house this year than I would have if it was 3 years ago. That's letting you know it's a seller's market. I touched on that idea of looking at statistics of the market. If you see that a home is selling at close to 100% of the list price, it's in the seller's hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the commercial side, I think you just, watching the economy. You're looking at, you keep hearing about Amazon buying, every warehouse they could find. They're building big warehouses. So they've taken a lot of the, again, your supply and demand. They've taken a lot of the supply off the market. So now you have a seller's market when it comes to warehouse. Apartment buildings are just, they seem to be inflation proof. So for a lot of investors like apartment buildings, they always have in Chicago, especially in the north side of Chicago, which gives more opportunities to this in the south and west sides. But in the north side, they've always been, inflation proof. They've always appreciated. I mean, they've come off here and there, but, you have to keep an eye on the economy and what's going on. Again, those resources I gave you will give you an understanding of what's happening in the market in the Chicagoland area and Chicago. So, I mean, understanding your market, where you want to buy is important. And you have to, look at resources and ask your agent, especially if you're buying residential or even commercial, ask your agent, what do you think? Is this a good time? Is this not a good time? If it is, what do I have to do to get the deal? And Lindsay, she gave you a lot of good pointers on how to get that deal done. It probably is the same thing on the commercial side. If, using those same information Lindsay provided.
We don't have any more questions. So I'm going to ask for the both of you, if you were to roll back a couple of years back with all the experience and knowledge that you have today, what would you tell your younger self?
I don't know.
I would definitely, I think I kind of mentioned, I would probably tell myself, start with commercial properties. For me, I bought 2 and 3 flats. They're fun. They did well. They provided good equity and good growth. But I would definitely have taken a earlier look at a commercial property, a multifamily in Chicago when the prices were a lot lower back then. So that's what I would. And work out more.
These Zoom calls, they kill you. Yeah, I'll follow with that one. Yes, work out more. I don't know, to be honest with you, it's so silly. Like, I'm glad Sofia mentioned that I was a teacher previously. I don't know. It's like follow your dreams, follow your path, because it's interesting. I actually worked for an appraisal company in the summers in high school and in college. And then when I graduated from college, I worked for a real estate attorney. And it's so funny because it's like I went to college for education, and on the back burner, I always thought about real estate. I always thought, I was like, I want to do it. And I had all this experience, and I took it for granted. And I kind of look back and I think, I don't trade what I did as a teacher for many years. I think it did shape me as a person, but sometimes I wish that I would have just stuck with my gut and stuck with what I thought from the beginning. And who would have known how many years of more experience of real estate I would have had under my belts. But I will say, stick with your gut, because I don't look back. People always ask, are you sad? Do you miss teaching? Nope. Not especially after remote learning. Nope. I could never imagine if I had to do that. So I just say stick with your gut. I do.
Well, thank you both. I wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge and really helping us expand, right? Looking at new opportunities and things like that, maybe personal or for business purposes. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first of the series. It's pretty much a wealth series that we really want for people to expand the knowledge and be comfortable with these conversations and gain self-awareness and things like that, just for they can create that legacy that many other people have for generations. So it may be the first time that you buy a home or a real estate property. I hope that this has really helped you. So thank you both for being here today.